Laura Caruso, welcome to Seeing Other People.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I know that this conversation is going to be beautiful. Like, there are so many things that we could talk about. There's so many things I want to talk about with you. I want to congratulate you on all of your success. You recently started the Safe Space with Laura Caruso podcast.
Thank
Congratulations.
you.
And your practice, Well Psychotherapy. Congratulations on doing that.
Thank you.
Huge accomplishment. What brought you to this point in your life? I know.
Oh my
question.
God. Yeah, we're really going with the hard hitters first. Honestly, I feel like I have this existential thought process every few months of like, how did I get here? Like, I feel like I just blinked one day and then I woke up and suddenly I had the career and the life that I always wanted. Like, when I was a kid, I always used to envision myself like walking around New York City and living in the city and traveling everywhere and like working for myself. And so it's almost a pinch me moment every single day of like, wow, I'm really doing this.
That's incredible. Where did you grow up?
New Jersey.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's cool that you can like actually recognize that.
Yeah.
I think about when I was younger, and I don't know if I had no idea like what I pictured my future life to be. The one thing I do remember though, I was probably like 12 and I was like, I wonder what I'm gonna like look like when I'm like 18. I wonder what I'm gonna look like when I'm like 25 and 30. And I feel like I look the same.
That's so funny.
So I'm like, I don't know what I was expecting.
I honestly think I look more similar to younger me. Like, I look like 6-year-old me versus teenage me. I don't know who that girl was.
I mean, teenage me and probably I imagine we were similar, but like teenage me was scary.
Yeah, same.
Like middle school me.
Same.
Middle school me was not a vibe.
Yeah, we don't talk about middle school me.
So, okay, what led you to want to become a therapist?
I was actually a speech therapist first. So I was moving to New York City. I was actually going to pre-med at Columbia and then working full-time as a speech therapist. So I always knew that I wanted to change careers, but I thought I wanted to be in medicine. And then the pandemic hit and I had to sit with my thoughts like everyone else and had to confront mental health like everyone else for the first time. And that pushed me into the psych world. And I was actually in a relationship at the time. And my ex had said, why don't you study psych? That's like who you are as a person. And it is. It's exactly how I see the world. I view the world through relationships. And I feel like when I went to school, I became a psychodynamic therapist, but I just had language to describe myself as a psychodynamic therapist. Like I always was one,
Wow. And I like that you're able to point out, or you're still pointing out, like my ex said this, because it is so true. Like there are so many life-changing things that happen in our lives because of relationships that
100%.
we were in the past. And it's amazing to acknowledge that and like be able to, maybe things didn't end the way you wanted, or maybe, there is some bad blood, but there's still some beauty that came out of it.
Oh yeah, he broke my heart and stomped all over it, but we don't hate him today.
And
because I wouldn't be a therapist if it weren't for him.
I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my horrible ex.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is a really cool thing to be able to do, but in the moment you're like, I will never appreciate this person, like down with them.
It took a few years to get to that point.
It does. Okay. As a therapist who has a lot of clients, I imagine, working through challenges with their dating life, with relationships, what do you see as the biggest issue that singles are struggling with in modern dating?
The dating pool. Oh my gosh. I wanted to answer that question before you even finished speaking. Like the dating pool, it's brutal out there. And I never used to answer that way. It always used to be, self-acceptance and self-love and thinking that you deserve more or not thinking that you deserve more. It's really the dating pool lately. I mean, people are just so self-centered and self-driven, and I get it. We're in this kind of like everyone for themselves type society now, but it's pushing people so far apart that the divide just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and people are less considerate of everyone else.
Do you think that's a New York specific thing, like with the hustle culture and like everyone is so like career focused, or do you think that's worldwide?
It's hard to say, right? Because I live in New York, so I'm biased, and I practice in New York, so all my clients are in New York. Most are in New York City. I think generally speaking, it's more of a societal trend, but it's definitely more common in New York. And I think it always existed in New York, but it's getting worse.
What can somebody do about that? Because that's one of those things, it's like seemingly out of their control, but if you want to find someone, you want to find someone.
Yeah, I think we honestly have to be practical about it, right? So I hate to throw men under the bus for a moment, but, women mature a lot faster than men. And so if you're a woman dating men, you have to be honest with yourself about, are you looking for a long-term relationship, a life partner? Are you looking to settle down? And if you are, maybe you shouldn't be dating in your age bracket. Maybe you should be increasing those numbers and start dating someone who is ready for that commitment, because men approach relationships a lot differently. Men want to have their life like laid out and set and feel ready to bring in then that life partner, whereas women are like, wow, we'll just do it all.
Yeah.
We're good at that, right? We multitask really well. Men struggle because men are very linear, and that's not a bad thing. It's really productive in their lives. We can't operate that way. We have to do it all at once. And then we're also beholden to things like biological clocks that men aren't.
Yeah. I remember a few years ago, I was sitting somewhere surrounded by a group of women. We were in San Francisco, and there were like three girls in their mid-30s, and they were saying, like, I remember one said, I'm so sick of the men here. Like, I'm not finding what I'm looking for. Like, maybe I should just date women. And the other two were like, I had the same thought.
Women are not much easier, trust me.
It was a really funny, like, interactions, like, over here.
Yeah.
But I imagine there are people, like, thinking, like, at a certain point, like, what do you do?
Yeah.
But that's not to say that, like, all men suck, or that all men are immature, or, can't multitask, can't juggle different things. But sometimes we're attracted to the wrong types of people for us, or the people who don't want to settle down. There are so many men out there who do. There are men listening to this right now who are like, wait, like,
your husband.
Yeah, for
when
sure.
You met him.
So I think, the selection process, our selection approach, that is something that we do have control over. That's not to say settle. Yeah. That's not to say, date someone you're not attracted to. But I think that was really practical advice you gave about, like, maybe look at your age bracket and go older. It doesn't have to be doomsday.
Yeah. Or ask the hard questions early on, right? I just did my most recent podcast episode about this. Like, when do you ask about marriage or kids or values? If that's something that you want, do it early on. It doesn't have to be this heavy, like, hey, do you want to have kids? Like, it doesn't have to be so loaded. It can be something like, where do you see yourself 10 years from now? Do you see yourself starting a family? Do you see yourself staying in the city if you're dating in the city, right? Get a feel for what they're looking for and envisioning in their future. And if it doesn't align with you, walk away.
Yeah.
Right.
That's one of the most asked questions I get. Like, when do I bring up this conversation of, like, what do you want in life? And I agree.
First date.
I completely agree. Because why
are you wasting your time?
For sure. 1,000%. And it doesn't have to be scary, and it doesn't have to be intense.
Yeah.
And if the other person isn't looking for the same things, like, you're not going to, by asking that question, you're not going to scare away someone who wants a commitment.
No.
If that's what you want.
No. And that's exactly what I said on my episode. I was like, if you scare someone away with that question, they're not for you.
Yeah.
You don't want to date them. Trust me.
At what point, if, let's say, you do start seeing someone, you ask that question, it seems like you're on the same life path. Maybe you're like 5, 6, 7 dates in now, and you want to kind of double tap on that. What is a good, safe, comfortable way to approach that conversation?
It's interesting because that's like right after the 1 month mark, right? So you're like seeing each other consistently. There's this understanding that you're dating each other. Maybe you're not exclusive yet. Maybe you stop dating other people at this point, but you're not ready to commit, and that's totally fine. You don't have to like force the relationship into something that it's not. But a conversation of, hey, I just wanted to check in. Like, I know we talked about our visions for the future, and I know we're kind of aligned, but I want to start having like some more serious conversations to see if there is a relationship here, right? Do we want this to turn into a long-term relationship? Is that something that we're both looking for? Are we both kind of on the same page about how we feel about each other, where we're at right now? It can be as easy as a check-in.
Let me ask you this. If that conversation happens and somebody says something along the lines of like, yeah, like, let me rephrase. Where they want to go is the same, but they express that like they don't feel like they're as in yet as you. Like, their feelings aren't as deep. They're not ready to be exclusive. How can somebody take that information and not absolutely lose their shit and spiral and self-sabotage?
You can't. You just have to spiral. You got to like let it out for a good day or two. Talk to your friends, right? Don't spiral to that person. That's not going to help you at all. Do what you need to do, right? We are all self-conscious. We're all insecure. It almost feels like rejection, even if it's not a flat out rejection. But hearing that you are more invested or you like someone more than the other person, that sucks. It feels like rejection. So acknowledge that. Acknowledge that it sucks. Journal about it. Talk to a therapist. Talk to your friends about it. Call your mom. Scream it from the rooftops if you have to. Just let it out. Don't attach stories to it. It doesn't have to become this whole like angsty teenage narrative of I'm not good enough. Nobody's ever going to love me. I know it's going to come up. I get it. We're all human. So notice it when it comes up and then just let it go.
Is it possible, or have you seen situations where this has happened and that person, the other person, does catch up with their feelings?
100%. 100%. I will say it's a lot of men in the beginning. Sorry, men. I'm not shitting on men, I swear. It's a lot of men who don't want to get invested early on because it's easier for them to detach. Women lead with emotion. We're socialized to do that from such a young age. And so unless you're more avoidant and emotionally disconnected, you're probably leading with your heart and you're probably going to fall faster. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. It's a scary thing, but it's not a bad thing.
No. I wouldn't change it at all.
Yeah.
I love the fact that I fall fast.
Yeah.
Because I also fall out of love quickly as well. So if it's not fit, I'm out.
Ooh. Okay. I'm intrigued because I was not that way.
I wasn't that for 2 years in my 3-year relationship, but
I was very much like fall fast and then just keep falling, and then they leave and I'm still falling.
yeah.
And I don't have a parachute.
Yeah.
I can't slowly land. I just crash and go into like the deepest hole in the ground, and then I hit rock bottom, and then I'm still falling for them.
Are you in the deepest hole, like still in love, or are you in the deepest hole hurt?
I was both.
Okay.
I was both. I was definitely hurt, but I was like, it was like, what could I have done differently? And why did this happen? And no, like, I'm sure we're supposed to be together. If only I could convince them. Like, that was it every single time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough because I always describe breakups, honestly, as a therapist, like worse than death because the person is alive. Mm-hmm. And so you have all of these questions, like you just asked, like, I could convince them, like, what did I do wrong? What could I have done differently? And you don't get answers to those, even though the person is very much alive and you want and need those answers. And so when someone dies, you accept that you can't get those answers. Whether you like it or not is a different story, but you have to move forward at some point. Yeah. Breakups are completely different.
Well, and it's easy to push back in your head and be like, well, because they're alive, I can actually get those answers. Yes. Let me get the conversation with them.
Let me call them real quick.
Yeah. Their answers will never, they will never satisfy you.
No, they'll never be enough.
No. And who knows if they're even honest.
Yeah.
And there might not be a reason.
Yeah.
It just might not be a match.
Exactly.
It's so tough.
Yeah.
It's so tough.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think there's an uncommon, not secret, but like an uncommon hack to getting through a breakup?
Oh my gosh. Honestly, numb it out. If that means you need to go buck wild with your friends for 2 weeks and you're like going out to dinner and doing all these plans, you're never alone for a minute to get through the emotional hurdle of it. Do it. You know, it's like I had to go see a psychiatrist after my last breakup. Not even because I knew the relationship needed to end, but I couldn't regulate myself because it's devastating. And I think the older that we get to, the harder the loss is. We're more aware that it's not a good fit. So it's easier for us to walk away, but we feel the impact harder because now those thoughts of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die alone. I'm never going to find someone. They're worse because we're older. We have less time. Yeah. And that's really scary. So navigate the hurdle, right? It's usually 2 weeks are the worst 2 weeks. And then you kind of move through it and then you start to get some like spark for life again and you're seeing the world in a different way. That's when you can do all the processing and the deeper healing.
Yeah. I think also with getting older, like how it can hit more for you. I think about, breakups that my friends have gone through where like 2 days before they were talking about what they were going to name their hypothetical future children. And like your whole future is painted out for you. You have a script. You know what it's going to look like. And then suddenly someone else decides, nope,
Mm-hmm.
That's not it. We're tearing this up. We're burning it. We're throwing it out. You don't get to live that life
Yep.
that you have been dreaming up and picturing that felt so close to touch.
There could be no indication, too, that it's ending. Like, my last relationship, like you just said, he was talking about kids like 2 days before we broke up.
Wow.
And then we just broke up. And it wasn't a good fit. It would have been a great relationship long term, and we would have been happy, but it wouldn't have been like my soulmate, you know? It's not the type of relationship that I would have wanted.
What was the reason for the breakup?
We're different people, and we traveled the world. We did 7 continents in 7 months last year, which was fucking insane.
Oh my God.
It was so exhausting, but so fun. And I met so many great people on the Antarctica trip. Like, you're just on a boat with 200 people, and it ended up being this last minute. We were in Buenos Aires and like joking, you know, what would it be like if we went to Antarctica? And I've been to Ushuaia, where you leave to get on the boat and then go to Antarctica before. So I know like you can hop on a boat for a last minute deal, and we kind of joked about it. And then I messaged the travel agencies, and someone got back within 10 minutes and was like, this is Thursday. Yeah, we actually have the perfect trip for you. It's $4,500 per person, all inclusive, luxury 5-star ship. And the whole expedition is like Burning Man on a boat.
When did you go? I'm so curious because
March.
Okay, my cousin and his wife, who I'm obsessed with, so close with, they went for their honeymoon. So I was like, is there a chance that you guys were on the same expedition?
It was like one of my closest friends on the boat. No, no. It was called Artists in Antarctica. And like Diplo was on the first one, but I literally thought it was a scam. We just put like $10,000 down for both of us to go, and we're like, we'll dispute it with a credit card if it comes up and it's a scam.
Wow.
It was crazy. But right, so like we did 7 months or 7 continents in 7 months. So we were going buck wild. There was a lot of like electricity because of that. And then we got back to New York and we were home. We moved in together, and it was normal life. And I was like, this isn't for me.
Wow.
And that's when the conflict started.
Yeah. Which again, it's like, I imagine you wouldn't take back that relationship
Not
for
at
long
all.
because of the experiences you had, and like the fact that you did that and you enjoyed it and got to live in this amazing way with this person that you loved.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And he's someone that I'll be friends with probably for the rest of my life. Not yet. That's going to take some time. But, you know, we are much better off as friends than we would be partners.
So that brings me to a question about being friends with an ex. That's interesting that you say like you will be friends.
Oh, yeah. It was an adult relationship.
Yeah.
And like I was in 2 years before that, I was in a 3-year relationship, and that's the one that like gutted me. I could never be friends with him. There's way too much unresolved hurt there, but he also stomped all over my heart. So it's different, right? My most recent ex, he didn't stomp over my heart. It was just, we weren't a good fit.
Okay. That's the difference.
Yeah.
That's the difference, and the difference is important.
And it doesn't say anything about you, right? I know people listening to this are going to think like, oh, I'm so mature, I'm so responsible if I could be friends with my ex. I don't even want to look in my long-term ex's direction. Like if I see him walking down a street, I'm seeing red.
Yeah.
There's nothing mature about it.
With mine. I'm like, would I punch him? Would I want to say something? I just don't know.
I had to move to South America after that relationship. And my first day back in New York City, we literally physically ran into each other.
Oh my God.
Touched bodies ran into each other. And I screamed. Obviously, I played it cool around him. But then as soon as I turned the corner, I call my best friend and I'm screaming.
Oh my God. That's when like New York City moment I'm picturing. Did you watch The Bold Type?
Yep.
First episode, they go into the subway, wait for the subway to pass by, and then scream at the top of their lungs.
Literally.
that
was me.
Moment.
He definitely heard me from the block over, but I don't care.
Oh my God. That is wild. Also, okay, so you have a tendency to move to other countries after breakups. I thought you were going to say Italy because I know that was one.
Yes, that was after my abusive relationship. I was 21 when I moved to Italy. To be fair, the plan was always to move to Italy.
Okay.
And then obviously the breakup expedited that. But I ended up like graduating college a semester early, moved to Italy. I was teaching English. That was my plan B if I didn't get into grad school. I was going to stay for the full year.
Wow.
It was so fun.
Your life. So cool.
Crazy to think
so
that
fun.
10-year-old me dreamed of this.
Yeah.
And like every day I pinch myself. There's no way I'm doing this. There's no way this is my life.
Unreal. Okay. What is a common piece of dating or relationship advice that you secretly hate or think is harmful?
Ooh. Um, the idea that men love the chase, hate that. Good men don't love the chase. Good men want to know how you feel, and like good men want to feel like you care about them,
Just like how we want to feel.
Exactly.
Crazy concept.
Exactly. I remember one of my best friends when I was a kid told me, like, you have to play hard to get, and it still rings true in my ears, and I'm just like, oh God, I'm so glad I never listened to that. I'm trying to think what else. This whole like timeline thing that you have to adhere to, like, okay, I can't do this until the third date. I can't do this until we're exclusive. It's like, throw it all away. It doesn't matter. Go at whatever pace works for you. And if it doesn't work for the other person, move on.
How do you battle the conversation in your head of like, oh, if only I hadn't said that? You know, if maybe I should have waited another date to say that, or like, oh, like we were having so much fun and then I brought that up. Like, why did I have to do that instead of just like enjoying it?
I don't even think you need to battle it. I think you just need to understand why you're doing that, right? It's like ignorance is bliss and knowledge is power. So if you understand why your mind goes to this whole, I shouldn't have done this, I should have done something differently, it's to regain a sense of control, right? If we can blame something, we can change it. And usually we blame ourselves because it's really easy to change ourselves. We can't change other people as easily. So we try to change these things about ourselves because that gives us a sense of false control, right? It puts us back into this position of, okay, I've got everything under control versus spiraling about the unknowns.
Yeah, we love to do that.
Oh, yeah.
What if, why?
Yep.
Why do you think that people are so adamant about like men love the chase or playing hard to get or like don't double text, like all of these little rules that we have been told for years and years? Like, why did that become popular?
The don't double text first. I don't send anything less than 3 messages in a row. Like that. I will not send a paragraph. It is 3 messages. Boom, boom, boom. I think people just like want to feel in control, kind of going back to that idea of control. It's okay, if I can create all of this, if I can create this rule book around it, then I know what to do, versus if I just like go out there and put myself out there in the open, that's fucking scary, right? So it gives us safety, it gives us stability, and it gives us something to hold on to.
One of my favorite things to learn about therapists is what is something that being a therapist has changed your mind about?
Ooh, good question. Honestly, I think how I view my family.
Ooh.
I was tough on my family growing up. And when I told my parents I was going back to school to become a therapist, my dad's words verbatim were, oh shit. Because he knew that I was going to have language to describe everything I had been calling out since I was a kid. I'm definitely the cycle breaker. I'm definitely the scapegoat in the family that it was just like, I'm not doing this anymore. This is ridiculous.
Wow.
And so I hold everyone to a really high standard in my family, and I have really rigid boundaries. And I think becoming a therapist has helped me understand. I think becoming a therapist and then also simultaneously just like growing up and doing life, right? It's like there's this little window of bliss in your 20s where you don't feel like an adult quite yet. You're still having fun. Like life isn't super serious. And then something happens, like you get sick or like you start taking a lot of bills or you start taking on a lot of bills. And you grow up and you realize how hard life really is every day. So I think that combined with like the empathy and the understanding that I have as a therapist now, I see my parents as humans.
Yeah. It is interesting, like now being in my 30s, now having friends who are having kids, it's like, wait, they're parents now.
Yes.
They're doing this. They have no idea what they're doing. It's like, wait, my parents had no idea what they were doing.
My parents still don't. Like they are still living every day for the first time.
Yeah. It's a really crazy concept. And I feel like for everyone, like one day it just clicks and it's like, whoa.
Yes. It was almost like, wow, I forgive you.
Yeah.
Like, I forgive you because I get it.
Yeah.
Like, I have the tools because I had to teach myself the tools. Like, obviously, there's the whole element of, yes, we're all responsible and we should teach ourselves. But, like, our parents also grew up in a very different generation. And this was not something people talked about. And so I was lucky enough to grow up in a generation that did talk about things like mental health, and especially pandemic, right? Post-pandemic world, everyone talks about mental health now. So I developed the tools in my 20s. Whereas my parents never did, right? My parents are developing the tools in their 60s.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because that same concept of like they're doing everything for the first time, that also applies to like every relationship you're in. I have people, a lot of listeners who have never been in relationships before, and they're really self-conscious about that. But just because someone's been in a relationship, if they then get into a relationship with you, this is the first time they've been in a relationship with you.
Yes.
And so that doesn't discount, like, if you haven't been in a romantic relationship before, you still have relationship experience, but it doesn't matter because neither of you have a relationship experience with each other.
100%. And I'm in a new relationship now, and it's very different from any relationship I've ever been in. And we're both still navigating this, it feels like, for the first time.
Yeah. How have you worked through that together?
Oh my goodness. We had our first fight last weekend and I cried like a little baby. It wasn't even a fight. It was a miscommunication and my feelings got hurt. And then I cried for 2 days about it. But, you know, it's different because we had to really air out our dirty laundry. Like I had to flat out tell him, you know, I'm a therapist and I talk to clients all day about their stuff. I don't want to talk about my stuff. And so I'm not going to just like readily give you this information that I'm hurt. And I know that that's not fair for you. But, you know, you'll also know if I'm hurt. So please ask me, like, is something wrong? Do you want to talk about it? And then let me decide if I want to talk about it or not. And obviously he asked me that night and I was just like, I don't want to talk about it. And then 2 minutes go by, we're just like laying in bed. I'm like, okay, I'll talk about it. Like, I just need that easy, like that gentle start, you know, to get into it. So knowing each other's patterns or like flaws, I hate to say flaws, but our limitations as humans, and being able to hold each other accountable to that is really valuable.
I love that you brought that up because I think like some people think like, oh, well, if someone's a therapist, they must be great at relationships, or like they know
Not even close.
They have all the tools, so they know how to articulate certain things. It's like, yeah, they have we all have tools. We don't always use them.
It also goes out the window when we're emotionally invested, right? I'm a really good therapist for my clients because I don't live their lives.
Right.
I don't get emotionally attached to their lives. For me, my emotions cloud everything.
But you're able to say, hey, like, here is how I might react in situations like this.
Yeah.
Here's what I need. And in time, I will be ready to talk about it. It might not be in the moment that you want, but you're able to say, like, here's how I deal with stress, with conflict, with situations like this. And that self-awareness is key.
Yes. And I think, right, had I not done that, I think any normal person would have been like, oh, she's in a mood, like, I don't want to bother her, I'll just leave her alone. And I spiraled a bit because I was already just like hanging on by a thread in general. And then that happened and I was really hanging on by a thread. And then we went back to his apartment and my dog like scratched his leather couch and I lost it. Like I went in the bedroom, like I didn't come out of the bedroom for 10 minutes. So he like gave me my moment. He knew I was freaking out in there and like let me get myself back together, came into the room and was just like, hey, like I just want to sit down with you. And so had I not told him that, he wouldn't have known that he can come into that room. He probably would have been scared of my emotions and been like, well, I don't know what she wants or needs, so I'm just gonna like keep my distance and let her do her thing. I just needed him next to me and that's it.
I am so flashing back to like multiple different episodes and seasons of Love is Blind.
Yes.
Like, okay, we're suddenly engaged. Okay, now we're living together. We have no idea how the other person operates and what they need and when they need space. And
it's so hard.
It's
a dance.
Crazy. Yeah.
It's learning to do this dance with your partner. And that's what makes a really strong life partner is like knowing each other and anticipating what's going to happen, right? A lot of people say your partner shouldn't have to anticipate your needs. I don't agree with that necessarily, right? It's like, this is a life partner. This idea that you have to do it so independently within a relationship is hyper independence.
Yeah.
Right? Like you choose a life partner because life is hard by yourself.
And this is the person that you want to go through the hard things with.
Right.
And that means hard things that the two of you are, you know, tackling together. That means hard things that happen in the relationship that you have to, again, not me versus you, but like together tackle it and approach it and resolve it. Like it's for life. And it's like, that's why dating is really hard.
It's really hard.
And it should be hard to find that person.
Yes.
It should not be easy.
No.
But we lose sight of that in the moment because we want to find it so badly.
I will say my current partner, I met him at a housewarming party of mutual friends. So like it was easy, which is the craziest part. I had no intention of dating. I was fresh out of a breakup. I didn't want to date. I didn't want to meet anyone. And like, I was doing my thing. I was having fun. And I was at this party. I was there for like 2 hours already. And then we met. And it was just like so by chance that we would have met. And we just hit it off from then. But, it's been such a learning process for me because he is very like, I want to take my time. Like, I want to go slowly. I want to build something sustainable. And he's really helped to solidify that like idea of a life partner in my head because I'm like all in, emotionally invested. And I want to go quickly. And I was so anxious in the beginning because I'm like, does he like me? Does he not? Like, I'm spiraling out of control. And now that we're actually in a relationship and it's defined and we've had a lot of these harder conversations, I have no anxiety because I know that he intentionally chose me. It's like his idea of this is a partner that you choose for life. I get it now. And I didn't understand that before.
And that probably feels so
good.
Amazing.
So good.
Like,
I'm going to have to tell him that I talked about him this whole episode. And he's going to be like,
all good things.
All things.
Great things. All right. I have a few listener questions here I would love your take on. The first one says, I feel like I keep dating the same person over and over. At first, they seem really into me, texting me all the time, making plans, acting super interested. But after a few weeks or months, they start pulling away, and I end up feeling like I have to work for their attention, and it's exhausting. Am I attracting the wrong people, or is this just how dating is now? How do I break this cycle?
Neither. You're the problem. I hate to break it to you. Rinse and repeat. If you're noticing the same patterns, you're the common denominator. And it's not because you're doing anything wrong. It's just because you're probably not aware of your patterns. None of us are, right? We have to develop that awareness. And so if you're noticing that they're starting to pull away, why are you staying? Right? Like, have the conversation once. We don't expect, I always tell people, you don't want perfect partners. You want messy partners who can own their mess.
Love.
Have the conversation first. If it doesn't go well or if behavior doesn't change, then you have your answer.
Yeah.
Don't just like walk away because you notice they're pulling away.
What are some maybe early signs that someone can look for that they're, going after the same type of person or the same person in different fonts again?
Mm-hmm. Your anxiety, right? So we feel anxious when things are inconsistent. And so if you're spiraling out of control, if you're wondering, how does this person feel about me? Do they even like me? Do they care? That's your sign that something is inconsistent.
Do you agree with the statement, when it's right, it will feel easy?
No, not at all. The right relationship will throw you through the ringer. Right? It's hard because the right relationship is going to force you to confront things that you've never confronted.
How do you know when to fight to stay in it versus when, like, this is too hard and messy?
When you want to, right? And sometimes it is too hard and messy and we still want to. You'll eventually get to that point where you just start to pull away and say, I don't even care anymore. Like, we're always fighting. It's the same thing every weekend. That's your sign to leave.
Yeah, I think that's interesting too. Like, it's the same thing every weekend, or like the same fight is happening over and over. Like, you keep going back to this one thing, and maybe it's from a lack of trust. Maybe it's from a specific insecurity that one of you has. Whatever it is, like, if you keep having the same exact fight over and over, you can't live the rest of your life like that. And clearly there's some disconnect. Someone's not being heard. Someone's not respecting what the other needs. And sometimes it is just a sign that this isn't right.
Yeah. And that Monday through Friday schedule, like, we love to hide out behind work and, we make plans with our friends. And then the weekend rolls around and you're forced to be with your partner for the whole weekend.
Well, it's like you coming back from all 7 continents and then just being in an apartment.
We had to confront it. Yeah. We really did. We ignored it. We tried to pretend like it didn't exist. We had travel still coming up in a month or two, and we were still traveling the whole summer. So it was like, okay, we could pretend this doesn't exist. And then September rolled around and we were here and we were just like, this is brutal.
Yeah. You can only hide it for so long.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The next one says, I've been seeing this guy for 3 months and we act like a couple. We spend weekends together, talk all the time, and even do things like grocery shopping together. But we've never had the what are we conversation. I want to bring it up, but I'm scared he's going to say he's not looking for anything serious. How do I ask without making it awkward or putting myself in the position to be rejected after all this time and investment?
You're going grocery shopping with him. I think he might want something serious.
I think he might think that you're his girlfriend.
Literally.
But what if he doesn't?
then he doesn't. You have the conversation, you know? It doesn't mean that you have the conversation and he's ready to define the relationship immediately, but you're gauging where you're both at, right? It's, hey, I feel like we've kind of been like living this life as a couple, but we've never actually had a conversation. I'm not trying to define the relationship. I just want to check in, right? Where are we right now? Like, what are we doing here? And have the conversation.
What is the best way to prepare for that conversation?
Lower your expectations. And that's not saying settle. It's saying don't go in with this fantasy of, okay, this is going to go so well and I'm going to be wifed up right after this conversation, right? That's probably not going to happen. Go into the conversation with curiosity. You just want to figure out what's happening, right? You just want to feel aligned. Almost like you're going into, I hate to compare it to work, but like relationships are kind of like work, right? Yeah. You're having a business meeting. You're just managing expectations along the way, right, to get to that final project.
I have a friend who recently, she had been seeing this guy for a while and talking about all the things and doing all the things, and she kind of thought like, does he think I'm his girlfriend? Like, I feel like he's my boyfriend, but I don't know. We haven't talked about it. And she did bring it up of like, what do you think this is? And he said he's like not ready to be her boyfriend yet, and that he thinks that like she's like settled into that a little faster than him. But he said like, that's not to say I'm not going to get there and that I don't want to get there, because I do. I'm just not there yet. And that was hard for her to hear.
Of course.
But she tried to focus on like the actions and are the actions aligning with the words? And they were, you know, like he was invested in her. He was making time for her. He was having deep conversations with her. And he's now meeting her family this weekend.
Wow. Oh my God, congrats, first of all. This was 3 months, you said?
This listener who sent in was 3 months, yes.
We also have to remind ourselves that like 3 months isn't a lot of time.
Yeah.
Right? It's like we feel it like it's a lot of time because we're spending a lot of time with this person, but 3 months is really not a lot of time. And going back to the question that we didn't answer earlier, I feel like I can answer the red flag that's not actually a red flag, is if someone's not fully invested early on into something. We have to manage our expectations of like, what is the quality of this relationship? Does this person even owe me anything if it's brand new? Right? We all develop connections at different rates. And just because someone isn't all in month 2 doesn't mean they're not going to be.
I also think with that, like learning about someone's past relationships and what's happened to them can give you so much insight into why they might want to move slower.
Yes.
Maybe they jumped into something and got really hurt by it.
Yes.
Maybe they were way more emotionally invested than somebody else in a prior relationship and that backfired. Like the more
maybe they were the one who messed up the relationship and they're scared.
Exactly. There's so many reasons why, like, people's actions and thoughts and words aren't random.
No.
At all.
No, it's all patterns.
Yeah. So I think it's really important to get curious. And to your point about with this listener who wrote in that it's only been 3 months, like it's only been 3 months. You don't want to be asking the same question 6 months in, 9 months in.
No.
Which is why it's important to have these little check-ins, like what's going on, where is your head at conversation. Again, doesn't, like you said, you can say like, I'm not trying to like define anything. I just want to know like how you're feeling and here's how I'm feeling. Because the worst thing you can do is not have any idea and continue to not have any idea. And the weeks go by and the months go by. I know people who have been 9 months in and have no idea.
Don't wait that long.
What's going on.
Do not wait that long.
That is terrible. That is
That's
self-sabotage.
like your friend though, right? She asked the question and now he's meeting her family. Amazing. But like, give yourself an emotional timeline. So if she walked away from that conversation saying like, okay, he's not ready, I'm a little hurt, completely understandable. Give yourself an emotional timeline. Does that mean you wait 6 months and then check in again and say, okay, if they're still not emotionally invested 6 months in, then I'm going to walk away because I want someone who can kind of commit emotionally within that time period.
For sure. I think it's a really smart way to approach it. All right, we got one more. I've always been super independent and I struggle with opening up in relationships. I know I want something real, but whenever I start to get close to someone, I pull back or downplay my feelings. I know that I do it, but I don't really know how to stop. How do I start getting comfortable being vulnerable without feeling like I'm setting myself up to get hurt?
You're telling yourself that you don't know how to stop. Maybe you don't know what to do next, right? But you know the pattern is there. So when you feel yourself pulling away, what's the opposite? You talk to them. Right? You say, I'm scared about this. You just name it. right? We pretend like we don't know what to do and we expect someone else to like give us all the answers. And there's nothing wrong with like seeking support from someone else, but we can't pretend like we don't know what to do, right? There's too much information out there on the internet now and it's all free. We know what to do. Tell someone you're scared. Tell someone you feel vulnerable. Tell someone you're worried about getting hurt, right? Have that conversation. That builds trust.
I think it's also an interesting idea to ask yourself, like, okay, what's the worst that's going to happen here?
Yes. I love doing that. Love it.
Because if you can be realistic with yourself, like, okay, let's say you've been seeing someone for a month or two, you're really into them, you want to tell them, you want to start getting vulnerable, you want to tell them that you're starting to fall for them. Okay, what's the worst that's going to happen?
My feelings get hurt.
Your feelings get hurt. It's not reciprocated. The situation ends. Okay. You've known them for 1 or 2 months.
Yes.
You'll
be over it in 4 days.
You were a full, complete person before. Why would you want to be with somebody who's not reciprocating those feelings or who is never going to?
Yes.
Like, okay, what's the worst that can happen? Yeah, your feelings get hurt.
We attach so much weight to things that we don't need to attach weight to.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it makes sense. Our emotions are wrapped up. Does it hurt to get rejected? 100%. Does it hurt to have to walk away? 100%. We're not denying that. We can acknowledge that it hurts. Order takeout, watch your favorite movie, put on your favorite sweats for 4 days.
Cry
and then
for a bit.
Pick yourself back up.
It'll be okay.
Like you did the last time.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay.
Like, what's the worst thing that happens if I open up to someone about this thing in my life or this thing about me and they don't accept me?
Yeah.
Or they reject me because of it. Okay, that's one person.
Yes.
And maybe it's the 3rd time. Maybe it's the 4th time. Okay, you don't want to be with somebody who's not going to accept you.
No. And you also don't grow if that's the case, right? You stay in this pattern and you repeat that same pattern for the rest of your life, right? Growth happens when you do something differently.
Yeah. And the not knowing, the not doing, the not saying is so much worse. It's so much more anxiety inducing than
it's a lot of
the
work.
going for it and letting the chips fall where they will.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so much work trying to manage your own emotions, trying to figure out where they're at, right? We create these stories and they're not even true half the time.
Oh my God. The stories I've told myself, like, beyond.
Yeah.
So much creativity up there.
It's insane. I feel like the only way, I don't know how this happened, maybe it was to survive my childhood, but the only way I survived high school was in my head. I would tell myself these stories of like, it doesn't matter what anyone says about you. Like, you're cool. I don't know.
I'm obsessed.
I don't know what
we weren't the same when we were younger.
Laura did.
That's
like
the most impressive thing I've ever heard come out of a 14-year-old's brain.
Like, I literally don't know how that happened or why. I think I just like, I got beat down at home. I got beat down at school by like this emotional chaos that the only safe place I had to have been my head. Right. It was like everything else was unsafe. So I created a safe space within my head. And that's what you do, right? It's like, okay, you get burned in the dating world. Tell yourself that you're amazing. Name all of the qualities about yourself that are amazing. Doesn't mean you're amazing 100% of the time. I suck a lot. Like, I get it. I can acknowledge that. But I also don't walk through this world with like a lack of confidence because I know that every single person in this world is different.
Yeah. You are the coolest therapist ever. Are you accepting new clients?
I am. I also have, so my fee is a little steep because I've been in the game for quite a few years, but I also have a practice that has a low fee. So if my fee doesn't work out, I have amazing clinicians that I train as well. So reach
Where
out.
can people find you?
I'm on Instagram at lauracaruso.therapy. And then there's a link in bio. Everything is there. My group practice, my podcast, literally everything is there.
Incredible. Okay. One last thing to do. What is the best piece of dating or relationship advice you've ever received or have to give?
Ooh, I think the best advice I have to give is just be yourself. Like, literally just be yourself. If you are goofy, if you're dorky, if you like these like niche interests, own it. Because when you find someone who likes those same things,
Greatest thing in the world.
It's going to jazz you up.
Hell yeah. I love that. I live for that. I live by it 100%.
Yeah.
Amazing. And finally, where can people check out your podcast? Tell them all about it. Guys, it is so, so, so amazing. You need to check it out.
Yeah, that's also on Instagram. It's at Safe Space with Laura. It's also on my at Laura lauracruso.therapy Instagram as well. So everything lives in one place. If you need any information about me, it's on my Instagram.
Amazing. Laura, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. It was so fun to finally do this.
I know.
Like I've known you for years.
Long time coming.
I'm never in New York, so to be fair.
That is true. Next time I'll come to Antarctica.
Yes, amazing.